And so I felt that in order to have frontline staff and people in the workplace give it their all and be refreshed here at work, emotional CPR is really needed on a regular basis, because a lot of times they might not be given 100% in their role because they're weary. And so that's why I thought it was real beneficial to try to revitalize staff that are currently doing the work, so they won't feel as though that they're not being appreciated or overlooked, or their troubles or needs are not priority.
Hello and welcome everyone to another conversation in Kim's Coffee House Chat. I'm Kim Ewing, and today we continue talking about a topic that's affecting many of us nationally, and that is our emotional well-being in the workplace. In the previous video, we talked about psychological safety with Rebecca Back, so make sure to listen to that conversation if you haven't. Today we'll be sharing my chat with Bryan Ball Carvajal from United Way of Central Indiana. We talked about the challenges of showing up to work exhausted and overwhelmed, but feeling the need to put on a smile despite the challenges. How has emotional CPR helped out in the process? We'll find out right now. Make sure to share and enjoy the conversation. First of all, Bryan, thank you, my dear friend, for joining us today. I was excited about this and just talking to you for so many reasons. And so let's just dive in. How's it sound?
Oh, fine with me.
So can you tell me about the role that you have as far as with the United Way of Central Indiana? Let's start there.
So I'm going on 10 months here at United Way, and my role here is on the community impact team, and the sub team is called Family Opportunity. And so here at United Way, they have several different teams. And so the community impact team with Family Opportunity works a lot with the community centers, our community-based organizations, whether they're accredited or not accredited, in all kinds of different ways, as far as funding, as far as relationship building, training, supporting all the frontline staff that is doing a lot of the human services work out here in our community, and all the several different zip codes that we serve for the communities that are, under-resourced, and also adding on to those partnerships as well. And so Family Opportunity has a lot of different things going on as far as workforce development initiatives, K through 12 initiatives, especially with the ECE, Early Childhood Education, Family Opportunity Funding, Community Impact Fund. So several different lines of funding to help, support the work that's going on out here in the community. Emotional CPR is one of our areas that we give funding to help continue the training, to help with frontline staff that need that support, that ongoing support. So United Way is really trying to lean in more to being a more intentional partner, not just a funder, but more present out in the community centers, especially with the frontline staff who so needs that extra support to keep going, to keep doing the work, to keep feeling empowered, to know that they are making a difference.
Wow. First of all, that's just a lot. The work that you're doing is incredible. And thank you for bringing emotional CPR along with you. The question I would have for you, Bryan, with all of that, tell me, how did you hear about emotional CPR?
I learned about it from my old coworker who was the director of 2Gen Approach, or 2Gen work, Whitney Fields. She was here with United Way for several few years and launched the 2Gen work that goes on here in Indianapolis, Indiana. And so she worked a lot with our community-based organizations and also the community centers that do center working family coactive coaching models with financial coaching, income supports, and also with career coaching, and also with the children in the schools as well. So the parents of those children. and in the schools. So I heard about emotional CPR from her, and she referred me and said that this is a good training that I should really look into. And I heard about it from other frontline staff at community centers who have been through emotional CPR, who came to me and said that they would really feel great if United Way could host this emotional CPR for all the staff to get. And so I was like, I never heard of that approach before. So that caught my eyes, like emotional CPR, huh? That's taking it on a different level. And so immediately I did start brainstorming about bringing the training to the frontline staff so they can all have that exposure and get the word out there. And I'm hoping that the ones who did make it to our last training at the end of last year would spread the word. So when we do it again, new staff members will come back and be able to lean into that vulnerability part of it.
Wow. First of all, this is amazing. And, it just made me think about the Indiana team that I happen to be a part of as well. And just, I'm very proud. I'm feeling a moment of being proud that clearly that it's reached and touched so many people in the state of Indiana, and for others to say, man, I want to do this, right? I want to be a part of this. And I remember when you reached out, you were like, tell me more. And you and I met by Zoom and talked about it. So for you, when we talked about it and you said, hey, Kim, tell me more. And I shared with you about how powerful this training was, how it changed my life because I shared with you personally. What made you decide after that to say, you know what, I want to bring this into the workforce, and why?
So a lot of times in the workforce, we tend to, a lot of times, just go in to get to hone in on the work that we're doing. And we sometimes get so zoomed in on the work of everyday life, we sometimes forget about some of the barriers, or I shouldn't even say barriers, but some of the extra uh, thoughts that we carry in our mind from our own personal life or struggles that we hold in that might be going on with us as people. And so when you're trying to work with other people to help them change or work on some deep issues or barriers in their life to move forward, you sometimes might be holding them back because of some issues that you might not have resolved that you're either dealing with in the present or still dealing with from the past that are still resurfacing. And so that's why I felt as though that it was beneficial in the workforce and bringing this into it is because there has been a lot of high turnover rate with our community centers, with retention, holding in staff. And I always was wondering, why is that? And then looking back as being a frontline staff, being an income supports coach, or working with at-risk youth, teens, and young adults, you can feel a bit exhausted because you're carrying their burden and you're also carrying your own burden of your own life and your personal life that you might not, because a lot of times in those situations you can't share some of those personal things that you're holding on to in your own life with the participant because it's about what they're trying to work on. So a lot of times you have to hold yourself back from sharing what you might be going through that might be similar to what they're going through, that's on a different kind of phase of life, but it might be some emotional things that are going on for you in your at home life that are showing up in a way. So you might not be as engaged with a participant that's in front of you because you're thinking about something that happened over the weekend or the previous month that might be troubling you, to really be transparent with the client and really focus on what they're needing. And so I felt that in order to have frontline staff and people in the workplace give it their all and be refreshed here at work, emotional CPR is really needed on a regular basis. Because a lot of times they might not be given 100% in their role because they're weary, and so that's why I thought it was real beneficial to try to revitalize staff that are currently doing the work, so they won't feel as though that they're not being appreciated or overlooked, or their troubles or needs are not priority, or it's not about them. Because a lot of times it is all about the the human interaction all the way around, not just for the participant, but for the person who is trying to be a help. How can you help somebody else if you're struggling with helping yourself through some things?
Woo! First of all, that hit me. That hit me. That's a game changer, right? Because what you're saying is that I see all of you. And if we're not helping to support the people that work for us, how can they help to support those that they serve?
Yeah, how can you walk in the door in the morning and give it your best
Yeah.
if you're only going in at 2% or running on fumes because of some issues that have not been tackled in your own life? How can you have a clear lens on really focusing on what they're saying and being a true well-rounded coach if you're trying to figure out how am I going to fix this problem in my own life? Because a lot of times you start, like we talked about in emotional CPR camp, hijacking somebody else's situation, and a lot of times you start hijacking another person's situation because you have not resolved some issues that you're dealing with. So you use that as a way as a support for you. But it is meant to be a support for you as well, but not with hijacking the participants' journey and trying to better their self. That's for that's their time for them to lean on you for support. And so a lot of times we might not have that support behind the scenes that the participant thinks that we might have.
Thank you for sharing that. I was thinking because I remember the group that you had. And man, there was a lot of tears in this training. There was a lot of aha moments in this training. The connection was so powerful. Empowering was surfacing. Revitalization was so present. Tell me, for you personally, what did this training mean for you? Because I know you had some aha moments in there as well.
Even though me and Kim had talked, you really don't really know the true essence of it until you actually walk through it as well. And so a lot of participants had no idea that it was not just about the concept about your own emotional CPR. So they were like, oh, I'm going to have to lean into what I'm dealing with. And so with me, I was like, oh, I am going to have to tackle some things that I might have been holding on to that are affecting me in my everyday work life. And so it was a few aha moments in my life that I was tackling during that time frame. And it caused me to really think about my own emotional CPR because I'm so focused on other people's emotional CPR that I was kind of overlooking some things that I was not doing for myself. And also I look back and I'm thinking to myself, have I been hijacking somebody else's journey as well when they're sharing with me? Is that what I'm getting back? Is that why sometimes the dialogue can sometimes come off as being disconnected? And so the emotional CPR helped me to really re-engage and find that connection when it comes to authentic conversation where I kind of missed the mark in my personal life. At work, working with participants and working with coworkers, you're able to do it there, but sometimes it's not always easy to do it at home in your personal life with loved ones, especially with a significant other or a partner or a spouse. A lot of times you might miss the mark there because you feel as though that you take responsibility or ownership for their happiness or what or their growth. And so a lot of times you might hijack their experience when they're just needing you just to listen. Um, and or maybe that's why they're disengaged because you did not give them that opportunity to just talk. And so that's where a lot of aha moments came from me at is that maybe I have not been so engaged. Maybe I had talked too much in situations where I should have listened more. So it caused me to really listen without always trying to feel as though that I need to fix something because they brought it up to me doesn't necessarily mean that they're looking for me to fix it. They just want to share with me what they've been struggling with. And maybe if they do want some answers or some kind of guidance, then they will ask for it instead of me volunteering myself to say, oh, this is what you should do. So that really helped me, especially around the holidays, because this happened, the training took place right before Christmas time came.
Yeah, it did.
And And so I had to do a lot of self-reflection over the Christmas holiday about how I was approaching certain situations and bringing down the anxiety that I was having when I feel like an elephant in the room. Maybe I was putting an elephant in the room that was not really there. But a lot of times when you feel as though a person has nonverbals in a situation, you might misperceive a nonverbal and take it as though it's directed towards you. But it might be something else going on in that person's life that they're not there yet with sharing because they're afraid that you might overtake the situation. And so that's what I had to do a lot of reflection from over the Christmas weekend. That's what was an aha moment for me that soon followed out the emotional CPR.
Wow, this is so beautiful. Just that self-awareness. And I think about how the hardest people to work with and to do this beautiful practice is family and friends, because we know too much, and being able to give ourselves grace to say, you know what, I got to slow it down. And what does it look like for me? And taking care of yourself, I think is so huge. That me CPR that we talked about, I remember you saying that about yourself too. Like, hey, I matter. Right?
Yeah. And also not forgetting, really thinking about why is that person not sharing with you? Reflecting back, why are they not sharing? They shared before, but why have they stopped sharing? And because I was always questioning, so why aren't they not sharing? They used to share so much, but why are they not sharing? And it was another aha moment. I see why they're not sharing is because I was hijacking their situation and I was playing Mr. Fix It instead of just leaning into the feeling behind it, what they were saying.
Wow.
So that really pushed me to, because in the emotional CPR training, Kimberly and her assistant kept saying, lean into the feeling, lean into the feeling. Don't try to fix it. Just lean into what they're feeling and just walk with what they're feeling. And so that really was a outside of my, I shouldn't say comfort zone, but I had to really improve that part of it.
Well, you're not alone, my friend. I came into this training as a fixer, and I start off every training by, if I'm doing it virtually, raise your hand if you're a fixer. I still raise my hand because I think people think just because you become a trainer that's not still there. And it's to be release that urge of fixing because we know that takes away people's power. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And that they have everything they need. That's why I love this practice. They have everything they need inside them. That they have the answers. I'm just there to support them along the way. And I find it to just be so freeing. Did you find that this new approach was freeing for you as well?
Yes, much so, much so. And there was a comment that was made from my significant other. They had said that in some situations I overtake a conversation and they feel powerless.
Ooh.
And I was like, oh, I see now why sometimes the sharing has stopped. And I had no idea all that time. And it was said right in that same time frame. I was like, oh, so I was like, okay. And it was never my intention on making somebody feel powerless. I just was eager to be a help. But sometimes people will tell you how you can best help them instead of you assuming that, oh, this way is the way that can help them. Just because it might work on someone else doesn't mean that it's going to work with every single person that you interact with. So I had to really step back and say, oh, maybe that's not the kind of help that they were looking for. And also not talk so much.
Was the acronym I said, wait, right?
Yeah.
Why am I talking?
Yeah.
Right. And trust me, I mean, I think what I love so much about emotional CPR, when we're in the room together, we realize we got a lot in common, right? Yeah, no one comes in perfect. And so many of us are just, we're the same. We're coming in like, oh my God, I've been doing this so wrong. It's like, what a paradigm shift. I shared today during the training, I'm like, man, I wish I could go back and talk to that 20-year-old and go, hey, you're doing this all wrong.
Yeah.
But you know what? I also go back and give that 20-year-old grace because I'm like, I've learned now. So yeah, I love that. So tell me, my friend, because I see a lot of good stuff and it sounds like you're still practicing it. Um, how have you seen this, those that have been trained in your team? Anybody sharing with you how this has made a difference for them? How are you seeing it show up in the workplace?
Well, today, it was day one of coactive coaching training here at United Way for frontline staff, and so they all came in this morning, and I saw several familiar faces who were in the last emotional CPR cohort that I did in the end of last year. Their focus in this training is a lot clearer than it was in the other previous training. How they're approaching this one seems like it's a new refreshness, and they were able to work out some issues that were lingering last year that they brought to emotional CPR that they're not bringing to this training. And so I've noticed in the way they conversate is not so much, oh, I'm going through this. It's not so much long line of barriers, but now it's more like I worked some things out. Now I'm on to a new phase in my life. So I see a lot more clearer lens. And so their feedback today from the familiar faces I saw were that things are a lot more clearer now. And they're able to do this training and better because of the emotional CPR. So what I'm finding is that before you even get to the coaching, coactive coaching training, the emotional CPR is the prerequisite to even get to the coactive coaching. So that's what I have seen now. Without emotional CPR, I think we're kind of a little bit blind to have a veil over our eye, like some foggy glasses.
Yeah.
So you can kind of clean your lenses a bit so you can see a little bit clearer. Because I think if I would have done the coactive coaching first, I don't think that they would have received it the same way they received it now if I have not done emotional CPR first.
Wow. That's so powerful. I'm a implicit bias trainer and I do bullying prevention. I do cost of poverty experience and team building and so many others. But I tell people, and it's not, I'm not, of course, I don't have to tell you, you already know about how I feel about emotional CPR and you've taken it. I tell people all the time that emotional CPR for me is the foundation of being a human. It's the absolute foundation. I am different. I'm different personally. I'm different spiritually. I'm different professionally. I don't even train the same way. I don't care what it is. If I'm doing bullying prevention and for the fire department here in Indianapolis, Indiana, and harassment, I'm different there. If I'm doing cost of poverty experience, I'm doing implicit bias or Harley Davidson, it doesn't matter. The approach is so different. Mm-hmm. And I just see that it's made such a difference for me personally. And that's what I'm hearing you say.
Most definitely. Most definitely. How you approach situations has helped. How frontline staff has approached clients is different. Just a little bit more clear-minded, and not being so emotional at the same time as a participant, because that can really shake a coaching relationship if they're triggering you in some things that you have not worked out, and so it kind of stops there because you both are being triggered by one another. And so the relationship it's hard to focus on some action steps to focus on a specific area when there's still a lot of emotions coming up in that relationship. And so I'm just glad that they were engaged with that and understanding that this really this is a need that needs to be done before you can move forward in the human service profession, or really in any profession, really, because we carry that with us. I know a lot of times in the workplace, they think that once you come from the door and the door shut, that stays outside the door, but it really doesn't. Mm-hmm. It really doesn't stay outside the door. It still lingers around. How you respond to people, some of your facial expressions that might not even have anything to do with what's going on that day is a reflection on what's going on in your life. And so I try to set an example of being at peace with myself when I'm around others, instead of showing chaos. Because a lot of times people will pick up on chaos, especially our participants. They will pick up, like, they seem a little bit kind of chaotic a bit. Mm-hmm. And so they might not open up at all.
I love that. I love that so much. And I heard you say for any profession. That's the part I heard you say too at the end. This is good for and to me how I took that and how I felt like any human, right? This is good no matter what you're doing. In a perfect world, what would you like to see happen now with emotional CPR, specifically with United Way, maybe not just United Way here in Indianapolis, Indiana. I don't know, maybe you have a bigger vision. And there's a two-part to this. And where would you like to see it outside of that? Because I know you've also shared some work that you would like to do outside of United Way, your work. Answer the question how you like to answer it.
I would like to see it in a United Way where it is mandated for all staff, including upper leadership, upper executive leadership, and just regular staff partake in the training as a mandate. I think it's a need. It helps the internal culture of a workplace and the workplace morale, especially when there's a lot of changes going on in the workplace, especially when there's a new a strategic plan about to launch, or there's some organizational changes. I think that the emotional CPR is vital to have built into the internal culture to maintain the morale in the workplace. I would like to see that at all United Ways, not just here in Indianapolis, but in other United Ways. And I think it's a need in the workplace as far as being part of employee development. I think that would really help and help with a lot of problems in the workplace. And I think it would help with some fierce conversations too about expressing your emotions in a way, and also having leadership really focus on the feeling of their staff, what's really going on. So that's what I really think that it would help, have it embedded into the internal culture of United Ways. And also with the work that I'm doing outside of here, with Indie Pride, I would like to see that with faith-based organizations, the emotional CPR, because a lot of times individuals who might be disconnected from the faith-based sector might need that emotional CPR to know that they are getting poured into as far as some of their emotions directly to them, not just from a sermon or somebody preaching at them standpoint, but more of a somebody who's there with them, who walks alongside them, a little bit more intimate setting. I think would really help. In Indie Pride, I know a lot of our population feels disconnected from those supports of who can I turn to for that emotional support. A lot of times their families might not be there because of their lifestyle choice. And so they might feel disconnected. They might feel disconnected from a faith-based organization, or may never attempt to even get involved because of that emotional piece. It might not be there, or it might be too much trauma from the past in their emotion. So I think emotional CPR can really go a long way with faith-based organizations too, and especially in the LGBTQ plus community with the youth and young adults who might not feel like they are loved or supported, are really being heard about some of their issues. I think if it's approached that way, I really do think that you will see a lot of growth with people and how people look at each other, and how relationships are strengthened, and how community keeps growing. That's what I really do think. So because I saw in the emotional CPR training that was taking place this last year, I have never seen some of my frontline staff and peers in that kind of light, where they always look very just very like they were able to tackle anything, and looked like everything was going well. But I saw a vulnerable side to them that I never seen before, the side where I'm a human too, and I have problems, and I have family and loved ones that are struggling, and I'm worried about, or I'm going through grief or loss or something like that they're struggling with. So it brought us closer together. And that's what the goal is, to try to bring people a little bit closer together, so they won't feel like that oh, well, just because you're going through that doesn't have anything to do with me. I'm over here. We all going through something, no matter where we're at.
That's, I'm just telling you, you just got me so excited. I'm serious. I see the vision already because you just put it out there. You just put it out there in the universe. And I just am a believer that that's just powerful words is just going to reach people. And you talked about connection, and you also talked about team building. And I felt it healing in that, cause my hashtag is hashtag I'm still healing. And it just, the journey of that looks so different for so many people. So I want to kind of give you this last word. In the last word, what I would love for you to do, if you don't mind, you can just say a few words, talk to somebody that is watching this right now that is really thinking about taking emotional CPR. They're thinking about it. They've heard about it. They've listened to our time together as we had this beautiful conversation. And if you could share with them why they should take it.
Well, I think if they should take it is because it's good food for the soul. It helps reestablish stability in your life. It also helps you tackle some areas where you have maybe been struggling in that you cannot seem to get a grasp on. And if you take it, especially in person, with emotional CPR, it gives you that support that you're looking for that you might not have had from other peers that are going through some things. So I think it really benefits. It strengthens your endurance to tackle things more without feeling burnout or feeling as though that there's no way out of a situation. So I think that this would really help anybody who's wanting to take that is to really tackle some areas where it's really pulling you down. And it also can probably impact your physical health. I really wish that my mother would have been involved in some sort of training like this at the time. Emotional CPR seems to be a newer approach, but about 20 years ago, in her 40s when she had passed, I really think that she would have really benefited from this because it probably would have added more years onto her life. When she had passed in her late 40s, she had been carrying a lot of emotional baggage for years before I was even born. And so here I am as a teenager wondering, I don't understand what this is all because she couldn't really express what was going on for her. It was always saving face. And so to me, she seemed fine. But then on other times, I'm thinking I'm kind of confused. And so I really wish that anybody who's trying to save face, I really, really would encourage them to lean into their vulnerability because it could add years onto your life. I think that the emotional damage that she had carried that she did not express to peers out of fear of judgment, I think caused her to uh, have a short life because she did pass away at 48 years old. And they said that internally she had the body of a 95-year-old woman. And I think a lot of stuff came from not having healthy emotional CPR for a lot of her life on different areas, regarding, my father, regarding her not having her mother and other things that regarding mental health that carried a lot of stigma in the African American community. Because back at that time, those things were not discussed openly when she was growing up about being transparent about what you're going through emotionally or with your mental health. It was always saving face and working really hard and focusing. Um, and so that's what I recommend for anybody who is taking this is that it's good to lean into that vulnerability to kind of lessen the load on you, not carry it alone, and maybe call a more holistic wellness approach, not just for mental health, but for your physical health. Because it surely has helped me because I enjoy going to the gym now as well. And that helped with the emotional CPR as well, because I use that as emotional CPR as going to the gym now. So that's part of it.
Mm, I love it. I love it. And thank you, because you were talking about generational trauma. And you made me think of my mother. And thank you, Bryan. Thank you so much. I tell you what, I train this a lot, but you're going to make me take this all over again. I tell you, if people don't get that, what they learned from you today, I don't know what else they need, but I know that's going to hit, and I'm joking, but I know that's going to hit a lot of people. That is going to be like, I want to know more about this emotional CPR. And thank you so much for just allowing us and trusting us to train your team, to allowing us to, and I'm just putting it out there because you already did, to grow this, because we are global all over the world. I just see this really helping so many more people.
Thank you. Thank you, Kim, and thank you all for listening in and listening to my vulnerability. This is probably the first time I've shared something out like this, with others, especially on a Zoom call. This is the first time I've done this, and actually, emotional CPR was the first time I shared some of my personal issues out loud in a group of people in the workplace setting. So I moved to bring this up into the internal culture committee here at work at United Way to see if we can bring the training here for us internally, for the morale here on the team, because we so desperately need it, especially with all the changes that are going on. It would really boost everybody's view.
Well, thank you. You had us at hello, and we'll be there. So, thank you. I appreciate it.